Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to introduce you to Tabitha Fung. Tabitha was a gym fanatic and hard-working marketing executive who at the age of 31 one morning just woke up paralysed. Tabitha hasn't let her spinal cord injury stop her at all. She went on to be an international wheelchair tennis player for the UK and is an ambassador for Coloplast. Ladies and gentlemen, Tabitha.
Thank you. Thank you, Gemma. I'm really honoured to be here, and I'd just like to say thank you for having me here and giving me this opportunity to tell my story. As Gemma's already said, my story isn't straightforward. I woke up one morning with no movement or feeling from the waist down. Prior to that, I'd been working, I'd been travelling around with work, and it was a massive shock. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey and hopefully encourage you to go out and try new things and just don't let life get in the way. So yeah, this is me. I was once cute and little. I had a very active, normal upbringing. I did ballet from a young age. I was brought up as a classical musician playing piano and flute. And had an absolutely amazing family. I have two younger brothers, and we used to like just going out there doing things, being very, very active, rollerblading with our friends, just the normal things that kids want to do. When I reached my early 30s, as has already been said, I woke up with no movement or feeling, and that for me was a huge thing. It was terrifying, and I ended up being in hospital for many weeks, having so many tests. It didn't matter what they were doing, nothing was coming back as a diagnosis. And eventually I was taken back to my parents' home, being unable to even sit up at that point. I was completely bedbound. And because I hadn't been diagnosed with a straightforward spinal cord injury, I didn't go through the standard pathway of care. So I was discharged, carried into my bed, and left. The hospital had arranged for carers to come 4 times a day. And for somebody in their 30s, you don't want to be stuck in one room in a house without having any way of being able to get out and get some fresh air or be active. And as you probably, a lot of you are probably aware, having carers coming into your home 4 times a day is incredibly invasive into your life, and it was really, really traumatic to deal with. I'm very, very grateful that my family have been so supportive, and I can honestly say I wouldn't be here today without their support. Obviously, living with my parents in a very busy house, having come from my own place, which was nice and quiet, took quite a lot of adjustment. And I love my family so much, and the support that they gave me actually helped me in my acceptance of what now seemed to become a reality and seemed to look like it was going to be a long-term reality. One of the things that I had to deal with was losing normal bladder function. And when I was initially discharged from hospital, I was discharged with an indwelling catheter and a night bag. This, again, was another thing to get used to and to deal with. I was very fortunate that we had a very good district nurse that came round, and her first comment was, "Why have you got an indwelling catheter?" And I said, "Well, because my bladder won't empty itself." And she said, "Well, haven't they even given you a leg bag?" And I didn't know anything about catheterization. And she actually took the time to talk to me and say, "Right, okay, there are other options. You don't have to be connected to a tube all of the time." And one of the things that I found was having an indwelling catheter was affecting my self-confidence and affecting my mood, and I became quite depressed at one point. When she introduced me to a leg bag, I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because I'm not carrying around my bag of urine. I've got it strapped to my leg, and it's not normal, but it's more normal. And then she introduced me to a flip flow valve, which again was another breakthrough for me. And step by step, she started to introduce me to intermittent catheterization, which again was something I'd never even heard of. And she actually came into my own home with a variety of intermittent catheters and took me into my bathroom to show me how to catheterize. And that for me was a really big deal. She was absolutely amazing. She took the time, and being able to learn how to catheterize in my own home was a lot more relaxed, and I wasn't in a sterile hospital environment that I didn't know. And it took a while, and it's a very personal thing to have to deal with. She left me with a whole range of catheters and said, okay, try these, see what you find is the most comfortable for you. And she was in touch with me very regularly. She left me with a phone number in case things went wrong or I started to panic. And it was such a breath of fresh air almost after having very little medical support. As time went on, I became more confident to use one specific type of catheter, and I found myself becoming more involved with the disabled community. And I went to an event for people with disabilities, and I saw a Coloplast stand there. And I started talking to them, and they introduced me to their range of intermittent catheters. They have quite a few different ones. And some of them they look like a mascara tube. They're so tiny. And again, that was another breakthrough for me. So over the first few months and years, everything was like I was seeing it for the first time, and it was exciting. And after speaking to the Coloplast team, I wanted to become very involved with them. So I actually became an ambassador. And it's something that I absolutely love. So as I go through my slides, I don't have too many, so please don't doze off. I've just noted down some of the tips and hints that I've learned. I've been in a wheelchair for 10 years, and I've still got things I know I need to learn. But there are things that I've picked up along the way that hopefully you might be able to apply to your own lives. So this is my first Tabby's Top Tips slide. So while I was in hospital, they didn't really know where to put me ward-wise because I didn't fall nicely into a little category box. I found myself on a rehabilitation ward for older people who were waiting to go into nursing homes. I was the youngest person on the ward by about 40 years, which again, for morale and well-being, I was thinking this really isn't good. All of the other ladies in my bay, there were 3 ladies, all had advanced dementia. One lady was absolutely lovely during the day, the sweetest person you'd ever meet, but at night she decided that I'd been her neighbour for 75 years and she never liked me. So that brought its own challenges. Because I didn't know what to expect or know how to deal with the situation that I was in, I didn't know about being in hospital long term, having somebody to advocate on my behalf. While I was in hospital, I was actually made redundant from the job that I was doing. I was a marketing executive. I'd not long completed my law degree. I was very busy and I really enjoyed my job. I'd been there for nearly 5 years. It was a role I was progressing in. They actually came to visit me, and while I was still incredibly poorly in that first phase of dealing with life, and told me they were going to make me redundant, which just kind of added to the whole situation. That was incredibly challenging. My mum has actually since confessed to me that she went and sobbed in my manager's office at one point. But having somebody to speak up for me was really important. My mother is actually a nurse, and she was able to ask questions that I wouldn't have known to ask. I was in hospital over my birthday and Christmas, and one of the things I found was that they weren't willing to come and help me wash my hair. So I remember on the morning of my birthday, she came in and she washed my hair from my hospital bed, and it was the greatest feeling in the world. So make sure that you don't accept substandard care. If you think something isn't right, speak up. Don't be frightened. Within the hospital system, there are patient advice and liaison officers, PALs. They're very useful, very helpful. They have a wealth of knowledge, and they know about problems that people face while they're in hospital. So speak to somebody, have them speak for you if you don't feel confident, if you need that little bit of extra support. If you need somebody to talk to, there are always hospital chaplains or counsellors available to come and talk to you. So don't suffer in silence and put up and think, I have to just deal with this and not say anything. It's okay not to be okay, but again, make sure you talk to people. I am a fiercely independent person and hate asking for help. And one of the things that I've had to learn as a wheelchair user is to ask for help. Yesterday was quite a good example of this. I took myself off for a wander as I got to my hotel, came back to the hotel, took a pathway. I'd got an electric attachment to my chair and found myself in deep gravel. I got stuck. And I was thinking, how on earth am I going to get out of this situation? I was really fortunate. There was a lovely person walking past, and I just had to say, please, can you come and help me? Because I'm going to be here all night if I don't get out. And they were lovely, and they helped me. But there was a time when I wouldn't have asked for help. I would have just sat there and tried to struggle through it and tried to work out a way, and really suffered in the process. So ask for help. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're finding you're struggling when you don't need to be. Find other people to talk to, whether that's face-to-face or on social media. There are always people around who can empathise with your situation. As I was a new wheelchair user, I was looking for advice online, on social media, and I found an amazing American group. It was huge. It had got thousands of members. As I was starting to ask questions, though, relating to the UK healthcare system, there were a lot of people there who couldn't answer my question. I was getting all sorts of amazing information and advice if I lived in America, but for me, UK, it was not viable. So I actually set up a group. I thought, I'll set up a UK wheelchair users group. Maybe I'll get a few people in, we can have a bit of a chat, maybe help each other, and it'll fizzle out and nothing will happen. 7 years on, I've now got 3,200 members, which is amazing. They are such a support to each other. There always seems to be somebody online, whether it's 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's always somebody to talk to. And I find that really important, particularly if I'm having a night where I'm not sleeping very well, I've got a million things going on in my head. We also have a policy where if somebody's having a day when they're feeling really down, but they don't really want to talk about it, but they need cheering up, we have a policy where they can actually just put, please cheer me up, I just need something, and the amount of puppy and kitten photographs that appear are amazing. But it's just kind of that little boost that you need just to get through. So one of the other things that happened to me was having grown up as a musician, music was a massive part of my life. I played piano and flute. My muscles have been affected slightly with my disability, and I have very little function, grip in my right hand. I drop a lot of things. I'm no longer able to play the instruments that I love. and I miss that an awful lot. It's like it left a huge hole in my life. I started to rebuild my life, and I discovered wheelchair tennis, and I'll come on to that in a little bit. But at other times when I've not been so active, when I've been quite ill and in bed, I've taught myself to do new things. I taught myself how to crochet and cross stitch and various other crafty bits and pieces that I can do when I don't have high energy days. And I find that kind of the process of learning to do something new is so rewarding when you suddenly see that things are happening and developing. Another thing that I discovered was that you need to take time for yourself. A lot of people want to know your story. I don't know whether you're the same. If you're out and about, people will say, okay, why are you in a wheelchair? And there are some days when you just think, I don't want to talk about it. Not that I'm a very private person, I'm very open about my disability and everything else, but I still have days when I'm tired and frustrated. And it's days like that where I think, okay, I'm just going to go do my nails or watch a movie or something just to take myself out of a situation for a while and just give yourself time to recharge and refresh. Find things that you enjoy doing. I love going to the theatre, I love going to the cinema. And again, things like that are so important. Spending time with your friends and your loved ones. When I became a wheelchair user, I had a lot of friends who were non-disabled. Actually, all of my friends were non-disabled when I became a wheelchair user, apart from maybe a couple of people. And it was such a big change. Everything changed. And unfortunately, when I became a wheelchair user, I actually lost a lot of friends. There are people who haven't spoken to me since the day I was admitted to hospital. And that really hurt. And I learned that I have to build new social groups and new ways of spending time with people. You can't just go out for a walk somewhere. You need to make sure it's accessible. And I think the friends that I had before I was a wheelchair user didn't fully understand the entire change to your mindset, to your lifestyle, to what you can and can't do. And then ask questions. A lot of people will go to their hospital consultation or have a telephone consultation with their GP and forget to ask questions. Before you go to your consultations, make sure you write things down. I have notes on my phone that as I go through life, as I struggle with something or have more pain or something, I make a note of it to talk this through with my medical professionals. And this I found really, really helpful in dealing with the questions I have. I'm no longer coming out of a consultation thinking, oh, I should have asked that question. And you've then got to wait several months before your next appointment. So just take time and ask questions. Okay, I can't get to the next slide. Thank you. When I was becoming more used to being a wheelchair user, I decided that I needed to remain as active as I could. I was very fortunate. I had an accessible gym not far from where I lived. And there was an amazing personal trainer there who really helped me come to grips with working out what exercises I could do from my wheelchair. At that point, I had a little bit more function in my lower body. I wasn't able to weight bear, but I was able to position myself differently in my wheelchair. And we worked on things, and one of the things that we did as part of my regular training was a bit of boxing. And quite strangely, this is what the local media picked up on, and at one point I was referred to being a gym bunny, which absolutely was mortifying. I am not a gym bunny. There was a number of people at that gym who had disabilities of varying degrees, and again, but we built quite a good social network within the gym, and it became a thing that we'd work out, and then we'd have a drink together afterwards. And that was really important with socialisation and communication and understanding the struggles that each people have. So yes. So I ended up doing quite a bit of media, and most of the pictures in the newspapers and things were all of me in my gym gear, which is not the most glamorous thing to wear. But it was definitely a new experience for me, and it started my journey of actually being open about my disability and talking about my struggles. And in the process of that, I wanted to be able to, I don't want to use the word inspire because it's a very difficult word to actually unpack, but I wanted to encourage other people to actually get out there, try something new. I never thought that I'd end up going to the gym. And following on from that, there was somebody at the gym who kept saying to me, there's a wheelchair tennis club close to where you live. Come and try it. I was not a sporty person. I didn't even watch Wimbledon. And I said to him, look, I don't like sport. I won't enjoy it. It's not for me. And that person persisted. And eventually, just to shut him up, I said, right, I'm going to one session. Once I've done that session, please just leave me to it and we'll forget about this whole thing. I went to that training session and I instantly fell in love with tennis. I'd never held a racket before. I don't think I barely hit a ball in that tryout session, but it was something that I decided that I wanted to develop. I was very fortunate that there was a wheelchair tennis club very close to where I live and actually now work. And joining them was, again, it was a total new life for me. I'd never been around disabled athletes before. And seeing their mindsets and their positive outlooks on life really helped me. I developed my tennis reasonably quickly. I think I did my first national tournament about 12 months into playing. It was a very scary experience. I didn't know what to expect. But I'm so glad I did it. My tennis started to develop. I got a tennis coach who is incredibly supportive, and I can't thank him enough for the work that he does with me. And through my development, I started going out to tournaments around the country. And then about another 12 months on, I was approached and said, well, why don't you come and start doing some international tournaments? Again, that was a really interesting experience because it was something that I never thought that I'd be a part of. I had massive imposter syndrome. I still do. I'll stand on the baseline at the beginning of a match and think, why am I here? But it is incredibly rewarding, and putting the effort into it and then seeing yourself develop and you start winning trophies and medals and things, it's just an elation. I've been really fortunate. I've travelled out to the British Open, and again, that's a really interesting experience. You're actually playing with Paralympic level athletes, and it is such a great opportunity. So I couldn't encourage you more to look at your local communities, see what there is out there. Unless you actually look and start exploring, you won't know what you can do. Just challenge yourself. So I've done a lot of travelling, and my second Tabby's top travel tips. These are just things that I've learned, and I've still got things to learn. So don't take this as solid. You will find your own ways of doing things. One of the things I've discovered is to be organised. Plan in advance, wherever you're going. I've actually gone out to organise tournaments, and they've said, we have an accessible hotel, it's fine. And my first trip to France, I got into my room and realised that the bathroom doors were so narrow, I couldn't get my wheelchair into the bathroom. And this was an accessible room. And a lot of the other people competing at the same tournament had the same problem. The solution was the hotel actually took all of the bathroom doors off the hinges, which gave us about an inch to be able to just squeeze into the bathroom. It was great I got a room on my own, but if you were sharing a room with somebody else, you got to know them very well. If you're going to go on a plane, again, you need to plan. If you're flying, every airport has assistants. Make sure you book the assistants when you book your flights. And double check the policy of the airports. Some of them, the airline will actually book your assistants for you. Other airports, you have to phone a few days in advance and let them know. It's still got a long way to go before it's a completely smooth transition. But the assistance that is available for me, not being able to walk at all, you can be escorted through the airport. You can have meeting points in the departure lounge if you want to go and shop in duty free or get something to eat. Just make sure you know where you need to be and at what time. You've potentially seen online the way of getting onto the plane. You have to leave your wheelchair at the door of the plane, transfer onto this little tiny aisle seat that you think my bum is never going to fit onto that seat, and you get dragged down the plane to your seat. It's not very dignified. But at the moment, that is the only option that is available. If you need a hoist, there is hoist slings that they can help you get to your seat. One of the things for me is that obviously I can't get to a bathroom. They say that planes have aisle chairs and the cabin crew are allowed to help you to the bathroom, but they can't help you transfer. For me, I find that very stressful. And so rather than worrying about trying to get to a bathroom, I actually put an indwelling catheter in. It goes in at the very last minute before I get on the plane. It comes out as soon as I'm off the plane. But that is the way that I've learnt to cope, and I was taught how to put in an indwelling catheter by my medical team, and that has been just a big assistance to me. Carry evidence of the medication and equipment that you're taking with you. What I usually try and do, if I have time, is actually do a translation to whichever country I'm going to that says I am a wheelchair user, I catheterize, I have this medication with me, I have this equipment with me. That way, as you're going through security, you still get stopped and questioned as to why you have catheters and various other medical equipment in your bag, but it's a very easy way of explaining. Coloplast do a little travel card as well that you can keep with your passport, and that has a basic explanation in various languages as well, and that's really useful. A lot of people don't know this, but many airlines actually allow you to take on, to check in a second bag that is containing your medical equipment. Now, this could be anything from medications to dressings to stoma equipment. Speak to your airline again before your flight and explain and find their policy, but they don't charge you for that second bag, and that can be a real big difference between trying to cram everything into a suitcase and potentially damaging what you're taking with you, or being able to travel with the knowledge that all of your equipment is all together in another bag. Toilets I've kind of mentioned. There's a lot of development happening with airlines at the moment to try and make airplanes a lot more accessible. I know they're currently working on being able to stay in your wheelchair while you're on the plane, which would be a huge breakthrough. We're not there yet, but hopefully in the next couple of years we'll start to see that coming through. Check out your local access where you're going to. I went out to Paris in the summer out to watch some of the Olympics, and the hotel I stayed in, they said they were completely accessible, and we got to the door of the hotel and there was a huge step. And it was fine if you were already in the hotel, they had a portable ramp. But having to shout from the door of the hotel and hope somebody in reception hears you so they can bring the ramp out was, again, it was another stress. Eventually, they gave me a direct number I could phone. When I'd been out and about, we could get back into the hotel. So that was a really big help. But it seems that in a lot of European countries where I've been, they'll say it's accessible, but it's a little wobbly at times. So just make sure, again, you plan. Ensure you know where your local medical facilities are. Having complex disabilities, you can travel and find something unexpected happens. Unfortunately, I did end up in hospital. Messaged me in the middle of the night one night because they were new to ISC and they were panicking. And I was able to talk to them and eventually calm them down and say, look, it's fine. You don't need to worry. Just relax, because the more tense you become, the more difficult it is to catheterize. So yes, that's my work with Coloplast. So where are we with life now, 10 years on? I've got a partner who I've been with now for a year and a half. He had no experience of disability before he met me, and has adjusted incredibly well. He's hugely supportive and has learned a lot. He also makes a really good ball boy at tennis training sessions, which is a bonus. I've got nieces and nephews who are young. They're all under the age of 12, and I love spending time with my family. Again, they continue to support me. My parents and my grandmother have actually helped me move into my bungalow, and having my own space is so important to me. I'm a very busy person. I'm rarely in one place for very long. So having that little sanctuary I can go back to and relax is just such an honour. And I mean, as I say, the support they've given me is incredible. I work full-time at a local hospital. It's a huge hospital. And alongside my day job, I'm actually chair of the Disability Network for our staff. The hospital trust actually has over 25,000 members of staff. So it's no mean feat for our staff with long-term health conditions and disabilities. But again, it's another rewarding role. It takes time and effort to put into it, but it's something that I really enjoy doing. And as you can see, I have a cat. I couldn't finish without saying I have a cat. He adopted me during lockdown. He stole bacon from my kitchen. That was our first introduction. But it happened during lockdown. I was having to completely isolate. And actually, he was a really good thing that happened to me. And it took a while to get to know him and for him to gain my trust. But now he absolutely owns my bungalow and tries to steal my pillow in the middle of the night. So my final top tips. Don't go out in snow. I learnt the hard way. Wheelchairs and snow don't mix. If you're feeling incredibly brave, go, but take somebody with you. My colleagues now know that if it even starts to snow or thinks about it, it's snowing, I need to go home if I'm at work. If you're in a car, it's very difficult to try and get yourself to a place of safety if you become stranded. If you can, learn how to do basic maintenance on your wheelchair. For me, it has saved a huge amount of money, a huge amount of stress. Basic things like being able to clear out your caster wheels, checking your tyre pressures, making sure that they're well inflated. All of these little things just add to getting through life a little bit easier. And again, it saves a lot of money. If you get the opportunity, do a wheelchair skills course. There are various ones that are run. There's a lot of spinal cord injury organisations that run wheelchair skills courses. I haven't done one myself yet. I've just not got around to it. But learning how to do things like doing a wheelie or bumping up and down curbs can make a huge difference as to whether you're having to push along the road or whether you can get back onto the pavement. Don't be afraid to try something new. Tennis, I wasn't going to like. And I was scared about trying it because I have really bad hand-eye coordination and I thought I'd be useless at it. And it wasn't until somebody actually pushed me and said, look, try it, that I realised what my potential was. So it doesn't matter whether it's something big or something small. Try cooking something new, or try a new type of food, or go and talk to somebody you don't know. If you see them out and about in a wheelchair, just remember that they might be having a bad day. Treasure the people around you. My family and the few friends that I have been amazing, and their support has been absolutely top of the list and something that I really value. Unfortunately, I've lost quite a few friends over the last few years, and you don't know how long you've got with them. So just treasure them, spend time with them, and just enjoy life. Keep an updated list of medications that you take. This has caught me out in the past when I've ended up in hospital unexpectedly, and they want you to go through what you take and what your doses are, and you think, okay, where do I start? And inevitably I've ended up missing something out. So I tend to try and keep in my purse just a list of the medication that you're taking, so that if you are in a situation where somebody needs to administer medication or you have to go to a medical facility, you've got it with you and it's something you can recall very easily. Challenge yourself, set goals. It doesn't need to be something big. Even if it's just making it out of your bedroom to the lounge and sitting on the sofa and watching a TV program or something. Give yourself little goals that you can achieve. It's something that's incredibly rewarding. It doesn't need to be something huge. But if you're feeling brave, try something bigger. It's okay to ask for help. I know I've touched on this already. Don't be afraid. People around. I've certainly, since I got into Ireland yesterday, people are so friendly and helpful around here. It's amazing. And take pleasure in the small things. Just enjoy what you've got. Surround yourself with things that you love. Talk to people. And just get through it every day. So I just want to finish with, you do what you want to do. Build your life. And find the independence that maybe you don't know you've got. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be breaking for lunch very shortly, but before we do, we have a Q&A session. We'll invite Tabitha to stay on the stage. Thank you for sharing your story with us. If we can invite Dr. Marco Baptista and Dr. Emer Smith back to the stage. We're going to have a short Q&A and we'll invite some questions from the floor. Thank you.
And I just want to ask yourself about the thing that goes into your head. And I have a friend who was at the Being Aware competition in Strasbourg, I think it was, there about 2 weeks ago. And he was saying that he uses the head mask, the headset that is able to move stuff on computers and stuff like that. But he was saying there was an awful lot of them that has the disc put in their head as well, that can do a lot more. Is that the same type as the one you were talking about earlier on?
I believe so. So this is the brain-computer interface. Within the spinal cord injury community, sometimes it's called the brain-spinal interface. So what a lot of companies are starting to do right now, Neuralink being one company that is, you probably hear quite a bit in the media, the recordings from the brain, so that the different configurations of neural firing to produce movement can be used to then control a cursor on a computer screen, control a robot. Within the spinal cord injury community, Onward Medical is taking that type of technology and making it very specific to controlling the epidural stimulator, which is implanted in the spine, so that the thought can then control movement. And this is still very early technology. There's a lot of work that's going to have to happen before this would be available on the market. And so what we're trying to do is support that really high-risk work to understand if this is going to be a feasible approach for some individuals in the community to use. But I believe this is similar to what you were describing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, I have another question over here.
First of all, thank you all for your presentations. I found them very, very interesting. A quick question for you, Dr. Marco. What role, if any, do you think AI will play in developing solutions to the problems you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so artificial intelligence now is something that's on everybody's radar. In fact, just recently, the Nobel prizes that went out were very much centered around artificial intelligence. For physics, the award actually really was showcasing how you can better understand the configuration of proteins, which could be in industry targeted with medicine. And that's been a game changer, and I was already seeing that when I was at the Michael J. Fox Foundation, how that type of AI approach could help with drug development. You see a lot of companies now, they actually have a new title of Chief of Artificial Intelligence that's occurring. So I think there's a lot of potential. It's technology that I don't fully understand, but I think as we collect more and more data, I think we're at the point right now that you're going to have these algorithms to really better understand what the data is showing, and it's not going to be one individual analyzing the data. What we need to make sure is that we have things in place so artificial intelligence algorithms can actually work on them. So I mentioned the Open Data Commons, where I'm encouraging raw data to be placed on a website. Well, it has to be then formatted in a manner that would be conducive for machine learning to work on it. So there needs to be conditions in place for AI to properly work. I don't think we're there yet, but we need to be thinking about it. But thanks for that question.
Okay, any further questions? Sorry, just up here.
Hi, I'd just like to ask Dr. Emer there, is there anything here in Ireland? I suffer with cauda-equina syndrome, but I also suffer with severe spinal arachnovitis of my spinal cord, and I'm just looking for new treatments or plan going forward with that with my surgeon here in Ireland.
Yeah, so as I said, cauda-equina syndrome would come under the umbrella by and large of non-traumatic injury, and unfortunately for people with spinal cord injury of non-traumatic origin, including cauda-equina, you're very underrepresented in the research. And part of the problem around that is the fact that maybe in this room there are a number of people with cauda-equina syndrome, but in terms of the numbers nationally with that as a health condition, the numbers are very small, so it's very difficult to get enough people together for any reasonably sized clinical trials. So unfortunately there hasn't really been any major breakthroughs in terms of like a surgical intervention, which I think is maybe what you're thinking about. Unfortunately not. The other difficulty, just to mention specifically with cauda-equina syndrome, is that it's what we call a lower motor neuron condition. So the spinal cord itself, the nerves are what we call upper motor neuron, by and large. So there's a difference in the types of cells that are damaged, and that's an important distinction to make. So unfortunately, to answer your question, I don't think there's been anything recent, particularly for cauda-equina syndrome, that at this time is going to make a meaningful impact for you, but perhaps in the future, but unfortunately not right now.
This question's for Tabitha. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thanks for the speakers. I found everything very informative, so thank you all. Tabitha, when you or your colleagues are travelling, have you found that there's any restrictions in relation to wheelchair sizes with any particular airlines, whether that's yourself or any of your colleagues?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting you asked that question, because I flew over to Dublin yesterday, and for the first time I actually saw they have like a ruler to make sure that your chair is not above a certain height. I'd never seen this before, and it wasn't even something I was aware of, but I can see that becoming problematic if you have a chair that you can't collapse the backrest. The biggest problem that I've had actually with flying is that I have a power attachment for my wheelchair. I have a tri-ride, and I was flying to Vienna last December and got to the airport and was starting to check in, and I'd flown with my tri-ride before, but they decided to turn around and say there was a limit on the battery that I could take, and the battery that I was using, that I'd flown with before, was no longer allowed. So actually, unfortunately, I had to leave my tri-ride at home and struggle for the week without it. But I mean, we managed it. But yeah, I've been very fortunate because there haven't been. My tennis chair was damaged once, but not badly. But I know that's something that people also worry about, and I don't know whether that height restriction is to do with what they've imposed to try and reduce damage to chairs. It's something that I certainly need to look into a little bit more.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are just about to break for lunch. Just a quick reminder, when you registered here today, you received a raffle ticket. We'll be doing the raffle during lunchtime, and we look forward to seeing you here at 2 p.m. sharp. So if you'd like to make your way in towards the exhibition area, ladies and gentlemen, lunch is now being served. Thank you.